All right, everybody. Welcome to our weekly WandaVision reviews. Today was the finale, and so we are going to talk all about the finale. And to join me, as they have done every week throughout this WandaVision, is Thomas Squires. Thomas, how you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, and you know what? You know what's been really cool about this series is Wanda's use of sweatwear.
Okay. I'm looking forward to learn more about her use of sweatwear. I'm hoping that there are charts. And we also have Eric. Eric, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm all right.
Have you tracked Wanda's sweatwear?
I have not, but
That's okay.
that
That's
is
okay.
definitely that's a hot take, I guess.
It's a hot take. Hot takes. Yeah. So here we are at the raggedy end, to quote Malcolm Reynolds. I'm
I kind of knew that was going to be your reaction.
I'm not low on it, but I'm not high on it. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle.
I think you put it succinctly in the message you sent me today at like 10:30 when I finished watching it. Is they stuck the landing, but barely.
Yeah, that's how I feel. That's how I feel about it.
And I really liked it. I was like, I can definitely point out to you like my high points of the episode, and they are high points. But like in terms of true comeuppance for a villain, meh. In terms of utilization of these fantastic characters that they built up throughout the series, like Vision is the only one that I think, including Wanda, I think Vision is the only one that they used to any full extent of the arcs that they had been building.
Yeah. I definitely have some issues, and we'll get into it later once we get through our recap. But
Right,
especially with Darcy, Jimmy, well, not so much Jimmy. Jimmy had a little bit to do in this, but Darcy and Monica for sure.
Yeah.
I was disappointed with the way they were handled in the last episode. Jimmy got a little bit more to do, but not much. They were the people that I probably connected to the most in this, and so I was a bit sad about that. But yeah, we'll get into definitely all that once we get a little bit further into the discussion. And everybody, this is your one and only warning. I will put the banner on. There will be spoilers. Spoilers throughout this. We're going to get into everything in the finale of WandaVision here. So if you have not watched it, please go and watch it, and then watch this on the replay. So getting right into it, we pick up right where we left off. Agatha has the kids leashed around the neck with these magic tendrily thingies. And Wanda hurls a chaos magic ball of energy at her, and we see, just like in the flashback in the previous episode, that she absorbs it, right? Like she's absorbing Wanda's magic, and she says it's kind of her MO. She takes magic from the undeserving. I found that sequence very interesting. So like now the thing that Wanda uses to fight, she can't use. What did y'all think about this opening sequence? Let's start with you, Eric.
I liked it for the most part. It did feel a bit like the sort of requisite big CGI battle that you get at the end of a lot of superhero movies. So like it was a little cliche, I thought, but to be expected, I suppose. But I liked that Agatha mentioned that that's her MO, that like she's not just doing this to be evil. Like she has like a motivation that we can understand, that like she thinks Wanda is undeserving of this power, and that that Agatha herself would use it to a better end, I guess. She thinks she's more deserving of that power and would use it in a more, I don't know, I'm not sure what she would use it for, but in her mind at least, like that, it would be a more proper use of the power than what Wanda has been doing. So I kind of like that, but as I said, just a little weary of the like big CGI battle, I guess, to some extent.
Yeah. And we also see that Wanda's hand shrivels and gets blackened, like she like put on a Horcrux ring or something. And the button on that scene, which I also like, is when she just like, well, I'm just going to throw a car at you. Throws a car at her, hits her with a car, and there's a wonderful Wizard of Oz imagery.
Yes,
a la Civil War.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Todd, what did you think about this sequence?
So I love me some action. And while WandaVision has been a really interesting mystery, what they've done very well is ratchet up the tension without anybody getting into a knockdown, drag out fight, which is what a superhero movie needs. Like, so I was itching for a fight. Now, I think where they kind of painted themselves into a corner is that, like, if Wanda doesn't know the full extent of her powers, then we're not going to get like a very dynamic fight. And after about 3 shovels or 3 shots of Scarlet Energy, I was bored with the fight. Because I was just like, well, we can't, if she's just doing shoo, 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 and Agatha's just doing shoo, shoo, shoo. I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, we can't, like, I'm not seeing anything interesting with the magic because we've never seen Wanda do anything more than like telekinesis or just literally hit you with the energy.
Especially when, you know, if she does connect, it's just going to drain her, so she can't even do that. So there's like seemingly not much she can do, which is interesting. And I instantly thought about, just throughout the course of this episode, one of the things they said is that they spent more on this than they did on like Endgame. And I was like, how?
Really?
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. I was very confused at that. And so like I'm wondering if that was like a misquote or something.
I think it probably was. Because it definitely looks like Catherine Hahn is on wires the entire time she's in the air. Like, I can't see them, but just the way she's like hovering, it looks very Halloween Town 2 Calabar's Revenge like style of effects. Vision and Wanda seem to float a little more naturally. Like, Wanda takes off and she's got like the Peter Pan knee, but then eventually she goes into like how you would actually fly, which is like not that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. I love though, like the Wicked Witch like boots shot is awesome. So that's it's so great. That's a great sequence.
I was expecting them to like curl up, you know, like underneath.
That would have been amazing if they had, you know, that. I mean, I don't think they need to, but I would have been very happy if they did.
And at least she went to go check. How many times have we seen it in movies where they throw a car on top of them and then they walk away, and you're like, no, you have to make sure that you got them. And I think Wanda's not even satisfied. Like, I think Wanda's like, I can get her, but I don't know where she is, and I can't figure out where she is, so I'm gonna address another problem.
Versus, it's literally though, it's just the boots,
right?
Like, her body's not there. She's like knocked out of her shoes.
Was she? Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I just looked at it just now, and yeah, it, like, literally all you can see are the boots, and then when it pans down, you see that she's not actually in the boots.
Right, because the camera's inside the wreck, and you can see the inside. Like, we look into her boots and look at Wanda, but then Vision shows up.
Yep, and so so then going from this sequence, as she's inspecting to see where she is. And she stands back up, and we see a reflection in the window, and we see that Vision has returned. And when she turns around, to her shock, it is not what do we call this, fake vision a la Agatha, or do we call him WandaVision? What do we call her vision within the show?
I mean, I would just say her vision.
Yeah, her vision.
All right, so we'll say Wanda. No, we'll say fission. fake Vision.
Is he fake?
I don't know why you're making this so hard.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
later.
I mean, there's a whole scene where they were trying to determine that.
Yeah. No spoilers. But yes,
There's literally a
we will
spoiler
talk.
banner on the bottom of the screen right now.
Well, no, because we're just not there yet. But it's not her. It's not fake Vision that she created from herself. It is the actual Vision.
Vision's body.
All white.
The white Vision.
Yeah,
Right.
it's White Knight Vision.
Yeah. And I think she realizes that this is not the construct she created. This is this is actual Bay. And she walks up to him. She's like, "Oh my God, Vision, like, is it you?" And he so lovingly touches her face and then lovingly touches the other side of her face and then just starts to squeeze and lifts her up. I was like, oh, that is disturbing.
Yeah, I don't think she knows it's not him. I think she's all over the place. I think she's emotionally wrecked. I think she goes, maybe this is what he looks like now. Because all she knows is that it's Vision, but things have been going so haywire that I don't know if this is him. Because if she knows it's him, if she knows it's not him, then like why does she get so close and let her head get crushed? Like, I think she was like, oh, it's Vision. And then I think that's what they're going for. I just can't.
Like, I feel like she knows that it's not the thing that she made.
Yeah, it's not.
And then, so then when she walks up, like the look on her face, and then she says, "Vision, is it really you?"
Yeah, like she.
So, like,
as
that's
far
what I
as
read.
She knows that like
she thinks it's
Sword has reanimated him.
Reanimated.
Yeah.
Right.
She doesn't know whether his mind is in there or not, though.
I think.
Right.
Now
that makes I can live with that. Where she's like, oh, this is the adamantium, vibranium shell I left behind somehow brought back to life.
Yeah,
and then,
but that, like, the way he really like tenderly grabs her, touches her face, and then and says he says Wanda, and then touches the other side of her face, and then just starts to squeeze. It's so disturbing.
Very disturbing.
But also, as strong as he is, I feel like her head would just instantly pop, and that's the end of the show. But that's yeah. But then, then her Vision that she made, Fission shows up, and then they start fighting, and now we have not only is Wanda fighting her dark half, but now Vision is fighting his dark half, right? So it's like that trope of like fighting like your opposite double.
Yeah.
Which is become very much a common trope in MCU movies, right? You just fight like your polar opposite that has the same power set as you.
It's a common trope in comics in general.
Yeah, it's just in comics, science fiction, children's television.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I'm so happy though that he didn't. He's just like, it's fine, don't worry about it. I get it. When she's like, I'm sorry, I should have told you everything. He's like, it's okay, it's fine. You made this world. We got to figure it out. We'll fix it. We'll try and fix it. We'll figure it out. Ever the supportive partner. I love Vision so much, especially like. It's increased even more so throughout this series. Like, Vision might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite character in the MCU at this point.
I think since Civil War, he's really been one of my favorites, and I didn't realize it. But I really did notice his absence in Endgame and was sore for it. Like, I know he was dead, but I was like, I just need acknowledgement of the fact that like they lost a team member.
Yeah.
And they didn't do that until Nat died, which I was like, well, what about Vision?
Yeah.
I like how, White Vision comes out of the wreckage, doing the, cool guys don't look at explosions, slow-mo walk. And then Agatha comes back as well. And they're like, all right, well, let's fight for it. And he goes to fight White Vision and she goes to fight Agatha. I thought that was pretty cool. Moving on, Monica is stuck in a room with Pietro, and he's just like, dude, nobody can hear you. It's you just chill, bro. Like just being the worst. Which is it's just I don't and I guess now is the time to talk about it. I really don't like what they did with fake Pietro. At this point, all he does is like do a little flick, like the I'm so fast that I can just touch you and make you fly across the room thing. We get another scene later, but we might as well just talk about it now. Where she finds out that Crystal, I can put an F on the name to denote fakeness. One of our Zooming the movie friends is messaging me telling me I cannot put an F on the beginning of the name to know fakeness, but they did it in the show. So I'm just following the convention of the show. So I say that I can't.
Sorry, they did what in the show?
That's what Agatha does. She says fake Pietro or Fietro. Like that's literally in the show.
Right,
so
I missed it, and I think my brain just went, "That's dumb," and edited it
out. It is dumb, but that's why I love it.
I mean,
but
so I was kind of calling them.
We got another Mandarin. Is that what we're going to talk about?
Yes, basically. But also beyond that, right? So we find out that this is Ralph. This is the Ralph that she's been mentioning the entire time. I didn't really like that, but also he's just some actor named Ralph Boner. I'm sure she's mispronouncing his name and it was just done for a stupid dick joke. But if you're going to say that this show ties directly into Multiverse of Madness, if you're going to say, and you're going to bring in Evan Peters, who played Quicksilver in another universe, you're putting lampshades on lampshades, and then you say Psyche didn't have anything to do with anything. I think that's a little bit cruel to the audience.
I think that the fans got a little worked up with their theories on this show, and so we all were kind of setting ourselves up for disappointment and expecting.
There's some theories that we may have gone a little overboard with. I don't think that's one of them. I think casting a Quicksilver from another universe is a pretty baity thing to do.
Yeah.
Look,
I'm just saying, Thomas, I would love you to weigh in on this.
I just think that what am I trying to say here? I'm seeing a lot of backlash against this episode online, and I feel like it's kind of similar to the phenomenon that happened when the new Star Wars movies went a different direction than many fans had expected. It was kind of fans built up these theories in their head, and when the story didn't go that way, they were instantly disappointed and thought it was crap. And I feel like there's a little of that going on with WandaVision.
Well, I don't think this is crap. I had
issues with the finale, but I think a lot of this stuff that we thought we were promised was really just fan speculation and not something that Marvel or Disney said.
They might not have said it, but I think they heavily were signaling, look at what we're doing. Look at what we're doing. This is introducing us to the multiverse, and then just pulled the rug out from under us. I think that's a little bit different than just I'm cool with it being 100 different things. It's this specific thing that I had an issue with personally. But I do see what you're saying, Eric, and I do think a lot of people are just completely dismissing the finale as a whole because they didn't get Mr. Fantastic or Doctor Strange or any of those things. Thomas, I'd love you to weigh in on it.
It's going to connect to Multiverse of Madness in the sense that Scarlet Witch is going to need to go to Doctor Strange to learn to master these powers that she's now.
Well, it looks like she's going to master it on her own. We'll talk about that later. Thomas, I'd love to get your take on the Pietro.
Marvel just pulled another trick from its old bag. We've had an actor play a character that we're familiar with the Mandarin in Iron Man 3, and now now it's happened again. I didn't even make the Ralph connection.
I didn't either. Yeah,
I guess it didn't even occur to me that it would be the same guy. That could be
missing husband.
And then so I love Marvel, but Marvel has hurt me real deep twice. Once was the Hulk in Infinity War, because he was in that final trailer shot, and then that shot is nowhere in the film. It's this big shot of all of them running out, and the Russos got called on it, and they were like, well, sometimes we put footage in the trailer that's not in the original film. And I was like, yeah, but this is blatant. This is just blatant stuff that changes the entire plot line, right? So I'm not saying don't tell us, or I'm not saying tell us about the problem with the Hulk in the film. Just don't show it. Like, we're just gonna assume he's there anyway. It's Infinity War anyway. And then the second one was Spider-Man, because one of the things I love about the Marvel Universe, as we talked about last week, is the multiverse. And so when Spider-Man when Spider-Man talks about the multiverse, that means something different than like Iron Man talking about the multiverse, because Spider-Man is one of the characters that has like direct interaction with the multiverse on so many levels. And we were given like such an easy in to the multiverse that when it was a slap in the face in the film, I was so mad. And I think it's one of the reasons I don't like Far From Home for the most part, because I like know it's coming. So everything now, like everything up until like the final fight, I'm just like, it's a lie. It's all fake. And like they tried to obfuscate that Mysterio was this villain. And I was like, no, we know who Mysterio is. We know he's a bad guy. Why are you trying to tell us he's a good guy? Like, we know he's a bad guy. Anyway, so that's how I feel about that. But what I do think is that it is a nice, interesting, and creative way to explain somebody looking like Evan Peters Quicksilver that we're all familiar with in universe. Right, like of who he is and what's going on. I think it was explained well. Like the explanation still would have worked if they didn't use Evan Peters. If they'd used me, like if they'd cast me as this new Pietro, and she was like, "Oh, it's Pietro," but it only worked. I think Maui, you're right, because Agatha, being a witch, can see beyond the realm that we're in and knows that this Pietro is going to sit with Wanda on some level because it is a version of her brother. So I still think we're right that that this was the beginning of our entryway, but to not get more of a solid like multiverse feel is like the thing that I'm disappointed about. Whereas other people are disappointed that we didn't get the Fantastic Four, which was a pipe dream.
Right. Yeah. Those things are the things that I'm like, okay, calm down. Most of I don't care too much if I don't get all the answers, right? I like the finale of Lost. I'm okay with not getting answers. But
you hear that,
like
JJ? Somebody liked it.
But like I said, if you're telling me this is connecting very heavily, directly connecting to Multiverse of Madness, and then you make a big deal out of this is the big cliffhanger episode, oh look, Evan Peters is back as Quicksilver. You don't do that and then not do that. You don't have Chekhov's gun and then toss it out the window. So like they better do something with that. Like even if they had just given me like a throwaway line where like probability said that he would be the best compatible with you, just to say like this is a face of another Quicksilver in another world. Just something.
She's like, I had to find one that wasn't riddled with bullet holes. Because the one in this universe is dead and has a bunch of bullet holes in him. And she's like, necromancy, no. So I had to find one that wasn't. And you're like, what do you mean you had to find one? Right? Yeah. Like that's the kind of thing that would spark and spiral. But I think we've beat this point.
Yes, for sure. So moving on, we see a little bit more of the Vision on Vision fight, and it's pretty cool. There's even a moment where the White Vision tries to grab the Vision that we know, grab his Mind Stone and rip it out, a la Infinity War, and he just phases through his arm, and like so now we actually get to see a Vision like at the height of his powers, not a wounded, beat up Vision over the course of a whole movie. We get to see what the Vision can really do, and seeing the two of them going at it was pretty cool. I have to say, even though I'm sick of the same power set against the same power set, it was a pretty freaking cool action sequence.
Yeah, it was a power set we haven't really, because he doesn't have to use his entire power set versus mortals. You know what I mean? Like he doesn't have to use his entire power set fighting, Captain America or whatever. He just changes his density and like they can't touch him. But like this guy can match that, so they both had to get creative in their usage, and I really appreciated that.
Eric, you got anything about that scene?
Are we talking about the scene where they have their philosophical debate, or was this before
No,
this?
no. This is their first action scene. High in the skies.
Oh, yeah.
Vision
Okay.
gets dropped down. Ends in a superhero landing.
Right. No, I would agree with you that it was really cool to see him use the full extent of his powers, and that made it visually interesting for me, just
Mhm.
to see what Vision was capable of when he has to use all the abilities at his disposal.
Yeah. I love that scene. And that's also the second superhero landing we get in this episode. Wanda does a superhero landing when Vision crashes into when Fission crashes into White Vision. She lands in a superhero landing, and then in this scene, Vision does a superhero landing. It seems that if you have superpowers and you fall from any sort of height, be it 6 inches or 100 feet, you land in superhero landing. Interesting.
Well, everybody knows a triangle is the strongest shape. 3-point landing.
There you go. We move into outside of the hex. Jimmy has been arrested by Sword. Hayward is there being a dick, as he is wont to do. And at this point, like Jimmy's like, dude, you're gonna go to jail for this, and he's just like, oh, not if they don't find out, la 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 la. You just lack vision, mustache twirl. Like
You know what?
is
It's a
the
Marvel
worst.
movie. I love him. I love it. I want more wordplay like that. Not
I love to hate Hayward.
Oh,
He,
sure.
he is a very effective villain, even though he has no powers, which I find interesting.
I just watched that actor in a more recent episode of Law and Order, and he's a very good, like, evil. He's a very good bad guy.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy does a little bit of using his close-up magic again, to steal a phone and a paperclip.
It's a superpower, man.
It's a superpower, close-up magic. And takes the phone. They go put him in timeout, and he picks the cuffs, calls the FBI. He made a quip to Hayward saying everybody's gonna be here in less than an hour, and then when he makes a phone call, he's like, yeah, can you be here like within the hour? Which I thought was hilarious.
That was
really good chew.
Yeah. I love Randall Park in this. I think he's a lot of fun.
He absolutely stole the show this entire series.
Mm-hmm.
And even because even his bit, even in Ant-Man and the Wasp, he was the like street level antagonist to Paul Rudd's Ant-Man. But I think he was still very endearing, and we just knew he was doing his job. We wanted Ant-Man to not be under house arrest, but I think at some point some of us wanted Jimmy Woo to catch him.
Jimmy Woo is what Hayward was trying to be in this, except Hayward is actually evil.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're like, okay, but I get because he has to do it because this is his job,
Right.
But like, whereas Hayward, you're like, oh, I get he's doing his job. No, he's actually crazy.
Jimmy says it. He's like, he's way beyond his provisional authority. Like Jimmy doesn't step beyond his authority. He had a prisoner who had to, he had to do his thing, right? He didn't step beyond that authority, right? But Hayward absolutely did. So yeah.
One more thing before we move to the next sequence. I love when Jimmy, after he gets out of the handcuffs, he goes and flourish. Call back to the talent contest in episode 2, which made me very happy. Definitely a fanboy of WandaVision. We move into town square, where she's looking for Agnes again, and all the people are in town square. And you were right, Thomas. I did not recognize him without hair and with the beard, but that was totally Herb. Did not recognize him in the previous
because I was real worried we were like being racist and just assuming the black guy was Herb.
Being racist.
I was very confused.
There's a finite number of people in this town.
We also get confirmation in this sequence that book that we saw in Agatha's basement is indeed the Darkhold, which is awesome. Apparently, there is an entire chapter devoted to the Scarlet Witch, a witch that has no need of incantation,
No
The
concept.
switch is not learned; they are forged. I believe is what she says.
That's always a great line when something's not made; it's forged, or something's not given; it's forged. It's always good. So here's my question, Kevin Feige. I know you're out there listening. Are we gonna get an explanation between what happened to the Darkhold at the end of its arc in Shield and where it is now, or are we just ignoring it?
I think I personally, my personal thought is that we are ignoring it.
Yeah, Feige seems to be under the impression that none of the TV shows prior to this are canon, which really pisses me off, as we talk about it in other episodes. That was not what we were told.
Say it. Disney said it, or Disney and Star Wars, they said it. They're like, nothing you thought was canon is canon.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which is fine. Cool. Now I know where I stand.
If you want to do that again now, do it. But don't, because the Darkhold
be wishy-washy about it.
The Darkhold arc was one of the better arcs in Agents of Shield, and that's an extremely powerful magical artifact that, of course, now is like much more convenient to carry and doesn't say Darkhold on the front of it.
Yes,
that was a little.
And that's actually why I think that this is not going to connect at all to Agents of Shield. I think what would be cool is if they say like the events that happened in Agents of Shield happened on this multiverse, on this Earth that is similar to the MCU but a little different. On this one, like Coulson, died and came back. On our Earth, on the MCU Earth, Coulson just stayed dead. Something like that.
If we get that eventually, that's cool. But right now, just make a statement, y'all.
Yep.
Yeah. But I mean, in fairness, the Darkhold's a magical book, so it could have altered its appearance in some way between the last time we saw it and now.
True.
Again, fair. Just tell me what the thing is. Just need one.
One of the other interesting things that's said in this scene is that Wanda's power exceeds even that of the Sorcerer Supreme. So she's more powerful than Stephen Strange, right? Like, pretty obvious to me at this point. And then also, it is your destiny to destroy the world.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah. That's not good. And so that's very interesting. I'm wondering if that is a plot thread that will be picked up in Multiverse of Madness. We also see in this sequence, she frees everybody in the town square, frees all of their minds. First with just Dottie.
Agatha does, yeah.
Yeah, Agatha does. To show like Wanda how horrible she is. And it's pretty disturbing because she's like, Dottie. And then she's like, no, my name is Sarah. I have a daughter. If you could please just let her out of her room, maybe she can be the boy's best friend, or maybe even the school bully. I don't care. Just like, I just want to see my kid. That was so disturbing.
Mm-hmm.
And this is one of the things that I love about this is that she has to face what she did.
Yeah.
Like she, even though she didn't do it on purpose, even though this wasn't her intention, this is the impact that it had. And as a person that does a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion space, I was very appreciative of the fact that it didn't matter what her intentions were. This is the impact of what it had on the people of this town. And I've been thinking about this town because I remember like ragging on this town for looking so garbage, and like, why would Vision buy a house in this garbage community?
Cheap.
Huh?
Is it because land was cheap?
No, it's because. But why is that town so downtrodden? It's because they lost half their population. Right. This is like I forgot. This is a world post Endgame. Like people were not there for 5. Half the people weren't there for 5 years. Of course, this town was. I think I talked about
this. I think I said this.
You did, but I didn't really think of that as much. Okay. And then I've been dwelling on it since then, and it's just like. They went from that to a few weeks of peace to then being mind controlled. And then when she releases the rest of them and you start hearing like, when you let us sleep, we have to dream your dreams, your nightmares, your traumas. Like we are like just wallowing in your self-pity and your grief and your pain and your trauma. That's awful what she did to these people. Oh my god!
Now this was my so I liked that. What I didn't like was Wanda standing in the middle, going like, "No, I made it better." And it's like, Wanda, no, you didn't. You know you didn't. Like we know you didn't, and therefore you know you didn't. Like we went on that journey of discovery with you, and we know that you did all of this against these people's will. Like, how can you honestly stand there and tell me that you kept them safe from anything? Like, no. I was like, no. That's a dumb answer, Wanda. You're smart.
She's still
she was
deflecting in that
herself.
moment. She's still deflecting in that moment.
I thought we had turned this corner where Wanda had accepted what she had done, not necessarily what it meant, but like, or the ramifications for her own future, which we're going to get to, of course, at the end of the episode. But like, I thought we had turned the corner, and she was like, okay, I did this thing. Yes, unintentionally, but I did it. And apparently in this moment, no, but we need it for the choking moment.
Right.
Like
right. So then right out of this, we come back and then eventually we see the choking. We actually cut back and then we see the Ralph Boner reveal, and then it cuts back and then we see the choking thing. So Ralph Boner thing happens at that point. Monica takes him down.
So Monica,
and then presumably escapes.
Oh, this is interesting. I didn't know about this. So Monica can see the energy of the charm.
Yeah.
Which
that was
was
interesting.
Cool.
That was cool.
Yeah. I like
seeing a different part of the spectrum.
Yeah, but besides that, whatever. Ralph Boner pisses me off. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
that was such a dumb joke.
Like I was like, oh, so Evan Peters is just stunt casting. This is not a multiverse thing. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little anticlimactic. I would definitely give you that.
Yeah. So we go back. She can't take all these people coming at her, and then her powers lash out, and she like starts choking everybody out. Like that was pretty disturbing.
Yeah, she just needed him to shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I immediately thought of like choke collars that like you would put on like a dog that's out of control. You know, like.
Well,
like, that's like these are all her like. These are her pets and her servants is what it felt like in that moment. It's like, no, she lashes out and like tugs on their leashes, basically.
I went the like they were talking and the words were disturbing her, so she stopped the words at their source, which is
is why she really needs to learn how to master this new, even higher form of her powers that have developed. Yeah, so that's a pretty fantastic sequence, I think. And then they say like, well, if you can't let us go, can you just kill us? Like that was like, oh my god. And like seeing Deborah Jo Rupp just like saying like, kill me, please. Your grief is poisoning us.
Yeah, which just an actress with her weight was just like, ooh.
Yeah. I think after this sequence is when we finally get back to Vision. I am scrubbing through now. Oh no, there's a moment where she's like, okay. And then she tries to dismantle the hex. And that's the moment where she realizes, she's like, go, everybody go. I'm letting you out. And then Vision starts to fall apart again. Her vision that she made starts to fall apart again, as well as the boys. And like the boys, because the boys like Wiccan gets a vision of his parents in danger, Fission and Wanda in danger, and they go, so they end up in the town hall right at that moment, and so just in time for her to see them losing form as well as Vision losing form, and she lets it back, and then that's when Agatha's like, see, there it is, you tied your family to this spell that you cast, so if you dismantle this, they too are dismantled. And so she closes it back up again. She's still not there yet, still not ready to let go, which is very, very interesting.
But from what we can tell, like everybody else sort of got out or got to safety somehow.
But
Because,
did
you
they
know,
though? I was confused because we saw
I essentially am making that assumption based on the fact that like we don't interact with them anymore after this moment. That like that arc is complete. Like Wanda let them go.
But in the previous scene, they had just been talking about a girl that was locked in her room. Like, what about all the people that were at home and weren't in the town square at that moment?
I'm aware that it may not be plot hole free, but the fact that we don't see anybody else or interact with anybody else who's a normal person in the town means to me that we,
that's how we were supposed to take it.
That's how we were released.
So, she lets them go. Agnes or Agatha drains more power from her. Now she has 2 shriveled arms. The White Vision shows up. Sword shows up. They're surrounded, and then they all do a Incredibles style pose, which made me very happy.
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, that made me real happy. The boys are dealing with Sword. Vision goes back to fighting White Vision. Yeah, and this leads, I believe, yes, it is my prime directive. I think it says my program is to destroy the Vision, and this is probably my favorite part here. I think it cuts away and then comes back.
It does. After he delivers him the conundrum of like, well, I'm not.
And he says, I request elaboration. And then they're standing up. Yep. And then we cut back to Wanda and Agatha. Agatha tries to drop a bunch of sword soldiers. She saves them. She says, boys, you handle the military. I'll take care of the witch. More superhero flying. The boys get to do some power stuff. And then this is where we see Hayward be the worst human being ever. I don't give a shit if those kids are constructs or not. He pulls a gun on these 2 children and unloads a whole clip. And Monica Rambeau, beautiful, wonderful, amazing, powerful, strong Black woman that she is, stands in between this man and these kids, and we see her powers, and she like the bullets go through her. She like seems to pull all the kinetic energy from the bullets, and as they pass through her, they just drop harmlessly on the ground. But then one gets past, like that scene in freaking Deadpool, and she watches it go past, and Wiccan stops the last bullet. And if anybody was on the fence of whether or not Hayward is a villain, I think this definitively closes the book on that. Any thoughts about that sequence with Monica and the twins?
I just really liked being able to see her use more of her powers, because before it was just kind of her eyes were glowing. I was like, I hope that's not all we're gonna get, you know. So it was nice to see her abilities developing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that what the intention of the show was, like, I think we were like, we're gonna get Mr. Fantastic. Like, no, what we got was Monica. Like, she's our new hero. But because
I'm more than happy with that.
Right, but because a lot of people, I think, who are MCU fans don't necessarily know who Photon is or Spectrum is, that it's, you know, it was less of a big thing. But also, we've known that she was attached to the project for so long that the fact that she got powers wasn't necessarily the biggest reveal, I think, to the fans. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if we got a Fantastic Four reveal, let's just say that, like, it would have been this thing that they kept secret, you know, like Luke in The Mandalorian. But Monica was one of her main characters, so following her in secret getting powers is less of a like turn the corner reveal that Marvel is sort of well known for. And just they built it into the story. But now it makes me go, okay, Monica's full story is going to be Captain Marvel 2.
Yeah. Is it so? I'm wondering what comes out first, and we'll talk about that. I'll hold on to that until we get to the post-credit sequences. The other thing that happens in this sequence, the little button on this sequence, is Hayward tries to get into a car, back up, and then try and just run over them with a car. And then Darcy comes out of nowhere in the funnel cake car and sideswipes him, and then it says, "Have fun in prison." And that is literally the only time we see Darcy in this entire episode. We see her through some dirty glass yelling, "Have fun in prison." And that's a wrap on Kat Dennings, everyone.
Yeah.
I have a bit of an issue with that, with the underuse. Like I said, I would have rather them taken like the contextualized Agatha scene and then a couple of those flashback sequences, peppered those throughout the show, and given us in the penultimate episode close their arcs so that we can be focused on Wanda in this finale, because this really is just, let's just laser focus in on Wanda. I'm fine, I'm happy with that, but I still need, because to my mind, the protagonist of this show for me was not Wanda, it was Monica and Darcy and Jimmy. For me, those were the people I was able to connect with and say, okay, these are the eyes that I'm seeing it through. I'm seeing Wanda through Monica's eyes, and Monica is seeing the humanity in Wanda and saying, no, this is a person that is grieving. We need to help her grieve. Right. And so it's an antagonist that is not a true antagonist in Wanda. Right. And trying to get her to let go of and move past this grief because it's hurting everyone around her. And so I'm really upset that I did not get the resolution that I was hoping for, especially with Monica. Less so with Jimmy and Darcy, but Monica, I needed more.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Yeah.
Moving on is my favorite sequence in this entire episode. My favorite fight, no fists are thrown. It is the Ship of Theseus conundrum. If anyone has taken a philosophy class, if you replace all the wood in the Ship of Theseus, is it still the Ship of Theseus? This is the conundrum that Wanda's vision proposes to White Vision, to the actual body of the real Vision. Am I the Vision? Like, what constitutes who is Vision? This Vision you were trying to kill. Amazing sequence, getting into what makes us us, and the two of them wrestling with that is incredible. And and then he's like, well, like, on the body, but I don't have any of the memories. He's like, well, I can give you that. And he restores the memories to Vision, and then we see Vision's eyes go from the weird blue eyes that he had to more human eyes, like
well,
used to have.
Like, they go from being pure mechanical to, for lack of a better term, having a soul.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Eyes are the windows to the soul. Yeah. I think that's a really great way to put it. And this is my favorite sequence in the entire show, and it cements for me that that Paul Bettany is just dunking on fools in acting sense. And I love that this is the Luke Skywalker moment that he alluded to, the person that I've always wanted to work with. That is a troll that I can get behind. So yeah, that's my favorite moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. To start with you, Thomas.
Yeah, it was the same thing for me. The philosophical idea. It's like, we're both Vision, we're both not Vision. What is, does memory make you human? There's so many layers here, and that sometimes you don't need to. That fighting with fists isn't going to solve the problem. Which, with Vision, any version of Vision, clearly you're going to have to outthink him, because he is just a hyper intelligent android. Love that. And so now we have this White Vision in the world. He's out there. Mm-hmm. And that has to be reconciled at some point. Mm-hmm. That's got to be reconciled through something. And who knows? It could be Multiverse of Madness. It could be Falcon and Winter Soldier for all we know. Like, we're going to have to deal with this version of Vision, and Wanda, like, that they both exist in the world. And as much as, she, I think, let go her grief, I think if there's a physical Vision with all the memories, I don't know if they're not gonna not be together again.
I don't know. Because so here's the thing: he has all the memories, but does it like in the comics? White Vision, I believe, had all the memories, but didn't have any
No,
emotional connection to them, right?
he didn't have the memories. That's what brought Vision back, was when they were able to restore his memories.
Okay. I thought he had the memories, but not the emotional connection, and then they restored the emotional connection to the memories.
Well, from what brief research I did, to me, it just seemed the ones that gave him his memories back, he was all good.
Okay. Eric, what are your thoughts on this sequence?
This was my favorite sequence in the episode as well. Like, just the philosophical debate I thought was really well done, and just exploring all these ideas of identity and like how we determine who we are, and like you were saying, what makes us us. So I was just riveted and just fascinated by that whole exchange between the two of them. I think my one disappointment, though, is that I assumed the resolution was going to be White Vision determining I am the Vision, and he would just destroy himself. Like,
I'm Vision.
Yeah, like that's his prime directive: destroy the Vision. Right. I thought that's where that was leading to. And to be honest, so here's the thing: I was a little disappointed by the episode overall, but not for like the reasons that the fandom was. Like, I was not, holding my breath for Mr. Fantastic or Doctor Strange, or for us to like even explore the multiverse even. My disappointment was based on like the narrative of the show that we got so far. And I felt like leaving this White Vision, with his memories restored and his physical body intact, leaving that in the universe kind of cheapens his death in Infinity War. And it cheapens the sacrifice that our Vision on the show makes later on, because, oh, well, he's still there, like he's not really dead. So
I wonder if that's like
didn't work for me, really.
I wonder if that's them having to wrestle with the comic book thing of like no one ever really dies, and knowing that like Paul, or wrestling with just sort of the logistics of the fact that Paul Bettany is such a fan favorite, and it's like they want to be able to play with the character as much as possible. And so when they can, within the comic book canon, bring him back in a way that isn't just like pure necromancy, like maybe that's why they did it. I absolutely understand why you feel that way and how it cheapens like Wanda's struggle as well, because it's like she got over the original death of Vision, but now there is another physical Vision with his memories. But I think, as we realize, as we see in the sequence, he is not going to be the same. Because the original Vision never had to struggle with being Vision. He just was Vision. This one has to come to terms with, has to reconcile that, and we haven't seen that yet. But again, I'm going to let it slide, because if it means I get more Paul Bettany and more Vision, I'm not mad.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. Like, there's definitely a lot of story potential in where they're going with it, so I can understand why they would make this decision. But I don't know. Just for me, I'm surprised that you're not agreeing with me on this, Maui, because you and I have talked about anything yet. The revolving door of death.
I literally haven't said anything yet. How am I not agreeing with you?
The faces you were making, I thought you were disagreeing with me. I apologize.
Oh, I'm listening. I'm taking in everything that you're saying.
Okay. Well, yeah, but this was kind of that debate that we've had in the past of like, when you bring these characters back from death, it does kind of remove the narrative power and impact of their death. So like for me, like that kind of pulled the rug out from under the sacrifice that our Vision on the show had to make, because it's like, well, there's a version of him still out there, so maybe Wanda can be reunited. And like, not to jump ahead,
I think that's the part that I'm bumping weird against what you're saying. I think I agree with you on the fact that it cheapens the original Vision's death. I don't know if it takes any of the bite out, at least for me, out of the death of the Vision that we had on this show. It
absolutely did for me. I mean, it's okay if I jump ahead a little, because this connects with a later scene. There was maybe we should get to that later.
Let's put a pin in it and let's talk.
Kind of goes to the point I was
right.
trying.
Yeah, let's
Anyway,
let's wait till we get to that part, and then we'll talk about like
All right.
the tale of two visions, right? And the vision decisions that they made. So yeah, so I'm Vision, he flies off. We see a callback to a power we haven't seen Wanda use since Age of Ultron, and she sneaks up behind Agatha and does the wiggly woos. And it's like the exact same thing where she like that quick walk, that like sped up walk,
the horror story version of her powers, which that was nice to see.
And then puts her back in Salem times and tries to like invade her mind that way, but does not work. It doesn't work, and then we get cool zombie witches.
Or knowing what we know about how this fight ends, did it work perfectly?
Ooh, elaborate on that. Okay,
so whenever the big reveal is that the hero was setting up a big con, right? Whenever the big reveal is that the hero conned the villain with their own info, which is what Wanda did, right? You have to think, how deep does the grift go, right? Like Ocean 11, they show you step by step how deep that grift went, right? We watch it happen, and that's the point. So whenever I get one and they don't explain because we do not get an explanation of when Wanda decided, like, I've got to get her so that I can like nullify her power in my space, right? A thing she learned from Agatha. So how far back did Wanda make that decision, and how much of her actions were to move Agatha into a position where Agatha thinks she's in charge and Wanda can at once feed her magic, but also cast these giant runes on the area, right? Because Wanda had to make that decision. It's not a thing you do accidentally.
And so, so as you said, right? So that progresses, the thing falls apart. Wanda says, fine. She offers her deal. You can have all of this. I'll leave this intact for you, and I'll fix the flaws. Just give me your magic. And then they come out of the illusion. I don't want it. She starts hurling magic at Agatha. Agatha's like soaking it all up, but there's a few bolts that are missing every here and there, and hitting the, you're just bong, like it's like reverberating off of the borders of the hex, and drains her, and we see her face like shrivel up, and she looks like she's just drained and spent. And then Agatha's like, psych, once you make a spell it can't change, you're boned, and then tries to blast her to end her life, and nothing happens. And that's when we get the and that's when we get the rune reveal, and
which I just went nice. I was like,
I thought that was a really cool touch.
Yeah,
I was very confused as to what was going on. I like, usually I figure that stuff out ahead of time. This time I was like very invested. I'm just like, oh, what's going to happen next? And I was like, oh, no way. And so I was very happy with that.
It definitely took me a few seconds to figure out, but I was like, wait, are those runes? I was like, oh, I think I know what she's doing.
Cast runes. She learned. Nice.
And then she takes all her magic back. She soaks it all back in. And then we see her finally become the Scarlet Witch. She's in the outfit. It is dope AF. It is so cool.
And that's the Party City Halloween costume version from a previous episode.
Right.
Yeah, the fully realized version. Yeah, it's really great
design. It's a really nice combination of the comic book design, her hero outfit from the MCU previously, and something that elevates her to an otherworldly status, which I really appreciate, and I'm hoping to see her in that outfit a lot more as we go on.
Yeah. And then so finally takes down the Agatha of it all. So Thomas, what you thought about this? Eric, what do you think about that sequence?
Oh, I absolutely loved like the reveal of the new costume. I was like, yes, finally! Like, this is kind of how I had wanted her to look all along, really,
Mhm.
because the red jacket and just kind of street clothes look was a little underwhelming to me.
Mhm.
And was I think that was they were going more for like the Ultimate Universe sort of version of the Scarlet Witch. I think I was influenced by that a bit.
Mhm.
So I love just the full like superhero outfit for Wanda. I thought that was really fantastic, and the rune trick was a nice reveal of her turning the tables on Agatha. I don't know. I'm not sure if I agree with you, Thomas, that like she was planning it that far back, like even when she was invading her memories, but it's possible.
What I mean to say is when you don't show me
Yeah,
step by step the grift, I now have to think between her gaining that knowledge and now, when did she make that decision? So it makes it colors all the other decisions and makes me question, did Agatha really gain the upper hand on her, or was that Wanda doing it?
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's
It is kind of open to interpretation.
more experiment than actually me trying to suss it out.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. So I'd be curious to know when she came up with that plan.
Yeah.
Right. When did she come up with that plan? Because obviously, like when she started hurling her magic, she knew what she was going to do. So when did that come to fruition? That would be interesting to think to figure out. So we get she's been defeated. Agatha is powerless, and she's like, "What, you gonna kill me now, or whatever?" And she's like, "No, I'm gonna give you the role you chose, the nosy neighbor," and then traps her in this facade. And she says, "No, like you're cruel," and I agree. Um, put her in jail. You stripped her of her powers, put her in jail, put her in a jail that can contain a magic person, something.
What is
I don't
that?
know.
What is a jail that contains a magic person?
Yeah, I don't think
take
the
her to Doctor
MCU is
Strange.
there
Take her
yet.
to Doctor Strange and say, "Hey, here's this
Blocking their
crazy
powers
witch.
and-
Do something," right? But like, there's something about the just completely taking away someone's agency and trapping her. Like, there's something super disturbing about that, and like,
I challenge you with the Doctor Who episode where where it's that family, it's like Tennant episode, and that family's like taking over a boarding school or whatever.
The Family of Blood / Human Nature.
Yeah, and his ending. So do you consider all of the things he did to them cruel?
I thought that was cruel as well, but I think the Doctor is often. I think the Doctor. If we want to talk about the Doctor, the Doctor is often cruel.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to compare it to another character that did very similar things, and I think sometimes with with the American justice system, we sometimes think that like fairness and justice are the same thing, and I don't necessarily think they are. I think things can be just and not fair, or fair and not just. And so I think punishing Agatha in this way is just. It may not be fair, but she is dangerous and left to her own devices, and the only person who knows anything possibly about her is Wanda, to Wanda's knowledge. Like Wanda doesn't.
So here's my philosophical question. So based off what you just said, is it fair or just that Wanda just gets to walk off scot-free after everything that she did in the events of the show?
I did not think it was. That was another one of my issues with this
And
episode.
should she be the one that should be deciding anybody's fate, given what she did? I mean, he who was without sin cast the first stone, right? Like, I think there's a lot to chew on there. That just because she's a superhero, that she gets to walk off scot-free, whereas Agatha, who, when you think about what Agatha actually did throughout the course of this, she tried to take magic away from somebody who enslaved a town. Right?
I think
it's an interesting thought process.
Right.
Thing,
And my quick answer is going to be that I don't think Wanda was let go scot-free. I think that the realization is that we don't have anything that can touch her. So if we're going to try and take her, like they couldn't. And Wanda at this point is going, I know what I did was wrong, and I'm not gonna try and I don't think she was trying to negate that. But of course no one's going to choose the penal system. Like no one's gonna make say like slap me in irons. She's like, I'm gonna figure this out and make amends, which is different from necessarily serving justice. Because who's gonna bring her in, right? If we're talking American justice, who's gonna bring her in?
It's an interesting thing. Eric, what do you think about this?
I don't know. I mean, like I was saying, one of my issues was that Wanda just walked away scot-free. We saw seemingly, we saw in the previous scene like how horrific the experience was for all the people of Westview, and what the impact of what she really did to them was. And I don't know. I didn't like that she just got to walk away, and that Monica was like, "Yeah, you suffered a lot of trauma. Oh well,
Girl, I would have done it too. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like,
if I see my mama again,
I agree with what Monica said. Like, I would bring my mom back, or both my parents. Like, I would bring all sorts of people back if I had that power. But if it meant causing that much pain to others, then maybe I wouldn't. And
but Wanda didn't have that information.
Right. The one thing I will say that is different is that everything that Agatha did, everything that Hayward did in the show, they did on purpose with the knowledge that this is what they were doing, and Wanda did it with not realizing what she was doing. But as I said earlier, and this was the message I thought that she was starting to understand, and I think she does to an extent, is that the intent doesn't matter as much as the impact. And the impact is that she, out of everybody on this show, hurt the most people.
Yeah.
Does that mean she should choose the penal system? I doubt they would even try and put her in that kind of jail, because it wouldn't really matter anyway. She could come and go as she pleased. They couldn't, stop her magic if they tried. But does she just go away? Does she say, like, we need to find a way to, help me control this so I can't do this to anybody else? Yeah. Can you help me, Monica?
That's what I was expecting to happen. I was expecting to see a more penitent Wanda who was remorseful for what she had done. I mean, like, we see her like overwhelmed by how much power she has and scared of how much power she has and what she's becoming, but we don't really see her remorseful for what she did to the people of Westview. I thought in that scene, as she's walking very awkwardly through the crowd, that she was going over to Monica to say, "Take me in," and that Monica would say, "Well, what you're saying, like, we can't control you. Like, there's no point."
Like, we can't lock you away. What we can do is help you understand
exactly,
and control your power so that you can't inadvertently hurt someone.
That's what I was hoping to see as a resolution here. I think
nobody can help her. Not Monica, not Jimmy, not Darcy. None of them have the slightest clue as to the scope or breadth of her powers. The only three people that might be able to help her are Agatha, the Darkhold, and Doctor Strange. Like, they're the only people. And to this point, Wanda doesn't know Strange, as far as we know. Like, they don't actually interact in Infinity War and Endgame.
They're probably in, like, a Facebook group.
I mean, maybe
like an Avengers, like group
text,
chat.
And Wanda said, "I need your help. I know where to find you." Right? So she's taking that monk road of, like, in order to stop hurting people, I have to do this by myself. She's taking that road.
Well, okay,
that is penance of any substantial weight to the people of Westview, but I'm going to be completely honest. Our story is about Wanda and not the people of Westview. And when we write these kinds of things, we just let it, it just lets go.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Shocking when we saw, personally, I like when Jimmy was like, or, when we get that end credit scene and there's all these like relief effort things happening. And I was like, oh shit, there's this impact, which is a thing I think Marvel is going to start digging into as we live in a world post-Endgame. But I don't think it's a thing that comic books as a whole have really dealt with.
That's true, but I think the point I'm trying to make though is that I feel like for the resolution of this show and Wanda's journey throughout it, I feel like I needed a bit more. I needed to see that she understood and was remorseful for the effect she had on these people's lives. And even if
I don't think
even
they
if it
did a
was
good job
just
of
a
that.
scene between her and Monica saying, "Take me in, I can't control it," and then Monica saying, "We can't either, we can't help you." That being the reason that she flies off to wherever she's gone or to find Doctor Strange, I think I would have liked that better in terms of the overall narrative that this show was telling.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
It
100%.
felt a lot
My-
like, oh, sorry guys, I'm
Right.
out.
my last point on it, and because I just think we're at an impasse in the way we view the story,
Yeah, probably.
is that I think the story overall was about grief and the grieving process, and not about unintended consequences. If it were about unintended consequences, then yes. But I think the like main thread that the writers were trying to give us was how do we process grief and how do we move on. And in that sense, that story was told. But if we were going to tell a story about unintended consequences of actions, then yes, we didn't get it. That's where I live.
And here's the thing. It's not, I'm not saying necessarily, I'm saying like, I wish that I had more of that. It doesn't break the episode for me. It doesn't make the episode for me. But depending on what lens I'm looking at, like you said, right? If I'm looking at this through the lens of a character study on grief, then I think they have achieved everything they set out to do in spades. But if I look at it through the lens of, consequences, right? The more like the various lenses I look at it through, as an MCU fanatic, excited to see how it's going to connect to the multiverse. If I look at it, depending on what lens, this particular lens, I definitely think they failed. And it makes me, when I look at it through this lens, it makes me rethink a lot of things. It makes me even rethink where I sit on Civil War, Team Cap, or Team Iron Man.
Interesting.
I've always sort of understood where Iron Man was coming from, but I've always been Team Cap because I didn't agree with his tactics. After everything I've seen in the MCU, the way it's presented, I think I agree with Tony. And I've never
other debate that we could get.
I've never done that before.
Getting us off of this topic,
right? But I think it's an important thing to mention, especially within the MCU, because the impetus for all that is Wanda.
Yeah,
so it's making me rethink everything from Civil War on. All my thoughts about that, I think, are starting to shift. I don't know that they're settled yet. I still have to, chew on it a little bit more. But yeah, it's interesting. Let's get to the end so that we can talk about some of this other stuff. So we get this. This is where the waterworks really start for me. They put the kids to bed, knowing this is the last time they're going to see them. We see the hex is starting to, she's released it. So it's just, but slowly, it's like a time release decay. And so they put them to bed. And she says, "Thanks for choosing me to be your mom." And that killed me. That was really tough. Being a person who, my partner and I lost the baby we were expecting, that really hit home for me. And I thought that, it's such a beautiful, quiet moment. And I think this is where the show really excels, is not in the big bombastic actiony fight scenes. It's in these quiet moments of these people with extraordinary powers, really kind of digging into themselves and seeing what they find. And that moment is just wonderful. So we get the kids goodbye. Any quick thoughts on the kids goodbye before we get to the large goodbye?
It was a lot more subtle than I was expecting it to be. It was a smaller moment, like with the way the sort of acting tour de force that Elizabeth Olsen has been giving us throughout this series. Like I thought it was going to, I don't know. I felt like the emotion was going to hit me a lot harder than it did. It felt like by that point, Wanda had sort of accepted, well, okay, my family's going to disappear now. There's nothing I can do. Like I don't know. It didn't hit as hard for me, I guess, for some reason.
Yeah, I don't think that she like really like played it big, and I like that she didn't. Because like regardless of whether or not they're about to not exist, she still wants to like be their mom to the bitter end, and so she's putting on a face
Yes,
for
yeah,
them.
that's fair.
So like I think that's what really like hit it for me. Okay, so then we move on to her goodbye with her vision, and she tries to turn off the lights, and he says, "Oh no, I hear it's bad luck to say goodbye in the dark." And she's like, "That's not a thing." He goes, "No," and and then they just have this like nice intimate moment with just the two of them, and there's one thing he asks before he's like, before I go, like I have to know, like, what am I? And she says, your blood and bone and wire that I created, your what she said, mostly, like you're my, you're my sadness and my hope, but mostly you're my love. And I have to look up who wrote this series, but this series has so many beautiful freaking lines like that I'm just like are worth the price. Like, I don't care if like I had a problem with how this story resolves. You give me a beautiful line like that that's so poignant, and I'm just like, take all my money. I'll do this all over again. I will rewatch this show a million times, even though yes, I have some problems and some nitpicks with the story and things like that. But overall, this is a brilliantly beautiful character study, one that we don't usually get in this genre, and I'm very, very appreciative of it. That whole sequence is beautiful, and there's something like where he says, I was, I was this, and then I was that, and I can't remember all the things he says, but then he says, I've been all these things, imagine what I can be next.
Thank you.
Like, it's amazing, it's just perfect. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. What are your thoughts on Vision's goodbye?
Hold on. Say it again. Where did you get the back?
What are we hearing right now?
I don't know. What are we hearing?
I'm so sorry. I had
a office background.
Oh, are you helping start up a Zooming?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I was not going to bleed over, but it is.
No, you're fine.
Yeah,
I hear the distinct voice of Tim Harkovich. I was like, this sounds like a Zooming the movies to me. Is it Frost Nixon tonight?
I think Thomas is a little.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll let him do that. I can always mute him for a minute until he's ready to talk. All right. So Eric, what are your thoughts on Vision's goodbye?
This is what I was talking about earlier, where I felt like this dialogue kind of undercut the sacrifice a little bit for me, because he was talking about how I've been a disembodied voice, I've been, a body without memories, and he's listing all these different incarnations, and imagine what I'll be next, like you were saying, and it's clearly setting up the character's return, and so I didn't really feel the impact of the sacrifice that they were making in that moment of like, okay, if the hex goes down, I cease to exist. Like they were like, this is not goodbye, I'll see you again someday. And like, as moving as it was, like that, I was a little disappointed, because I felt like the resolution this show was building towards was that Wanda has to accept that this reality is not real, that she created, and she has to let go of her family, which she was letting go, but then it was leaving this door open for, but maybe we'll see each other again. I was like, between that and now the White Vision having its memories restored and flying out into the world rather than self-destructing, I kind of felt like the sacrifice did not hit as hard as it could have.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my
I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting, and I partially agree with it. In terms of the vision that we've had throughout, the MCU as we known it prior to WandaVision, the White Vision saying "I'm Vision" and flying off, right? That's that vision, and I totally can see and mostly agree with like that kind of like cheapening the impact of that death. In terms of this vision, this Vision is not that Vision. This Vision is, this is almost like her letting go of her grief, and this grief personified, the persevering love of Wanda. And so regardless of, even, that line about, I've been a body with no memories, I don't actually connect that with him, even though they are kind of the same person. This is me saying goodbye to this character from this show. And within that context, like, I think it's a very beautiful goodbye for this version of the character who had no idea who he was. And even though he's like, oh, well, like, Wanda, you'll still have somebody, he is ceasing to exist. That Vision we will never see again. That Vision has been released. My thought, what I thought they were going to do, I thought that by the end of this, they would put this Vision into that carcass, and then boom, she'd have like a full Vision. And they didn't do that, and I'm kind of glad they didn't. They didn't.
Right.
Do it.
Yeah.
That to me would have actually cheapened his death and Wanda's sacrifice in the story. So I'm glad that they didn't, because she doesn't, at the end of the story, regardless of whether there is another Vision out there, like, she does not have her Vision at the end of this, which was the whole point of her creating the world. So while I do see where Eric is coming from, that's where I'm living, is that, like, she got none of what she wanted, and she got more things to deal with than she's capable of, which gives us more things to do with story later on.
Yeah. So we have that, and then we see the house, everything kind of go back and revert, and then there she is after all this, standing in the same clothes as she was when she got to Westview in the first place, staying on that same empty plot. But kind of resolute. She looks sad, but her grief is not, her grief is a part of her, but her grief is no longer her. And I think that is a personal triumph for Wanda. Also, her Buick is still there, which is lovely.
Well, right, everything got rewritten. Everything goes back to the way it was.
Yeah. She walks down the street. Everyone is just staring daggers at her. They know there's not fuck all they can do to her, but they're like, how dare you do this to us? Which
I do have to say that I did get a message that I've got other people in my camp. Our mutual friend Crystal is in my camp of no punitive measures for Wanda. So there will be more debate, I'm sure, among us as we move on throughout the MCU.
Absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, and we'll definitely have more conversations about that. I don't know if the repercussions necessarily need to be her locked up, but I would have liked to have seen her go to them for help, right? Not to just go off unchecked, wielding all this power without actually doing like a deeper processing of anything. So like, but that's a conversation for another time. Monica says, hey, if it was my chance to see my mom, I would have done the same thing. Says goodbye to her. Wanda goes flying off. Not wearing, she doesn't have the Scarlet Witch helm. She has like a hood on instead, which I thought was interesting. And then we roll credits. We have two post-credit sequences. Our first post-credit sequence is the relief efforts in Westview. A sword or FBI agent, I would assume, actually, says, hey, someone wants to see you in the theater. She goes into the theater, and that person turns into a scroll and says, an old friend of your mom wants to see you, heard you were grounded. I was like, oh, well, where is this person? And points up. I'm assuming that is Nick Fury that they are referring to, and that means Monica will also possibly be a part of Secret Invasion, which is going to be the Nick Fury show. Or maybe Nick Fury is also in Captain Marvel 2. I'm not sure, but that's an interesting dangling plot thread. Any thoughts on that post-credit stinger, Thomas?
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff I love about Marvel, where we're getting some substantial stuff being hinted at. Like that's where it goes. It goes in that post-credit stinger, where I mean I don't know, like so much of the post-credit stingers never really left a lot to interpret. They like directly hinted at something else that's coming, all the way back to Iron Man 1. You know what I mean? So it was very much in keeping with the world of Marvel's post-credit singers. And I love the thing that we're getting with Skrulls is that like we have good Skrulls, but in order for Secret Invasion to work, we need bad Skrulls. So I'm waiting to see bad Skrulls.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I kind of like that there's not just evil Skrulls, that there's good Skrulls and bad Skrulls, just like there's good people and bad people. That makes me happy. Eric, thoughts on this post-credit sequence?
So I was not the biggest fan of the Captain Marvel movie, so this one didn't excite me as much. But it could lead to some interesting things, like you guys are saying. I'm definitely intrigued to see where Monica's story goes from here. That was what I was excited for. Not as much with the Skrulls, I guess, but just to see where Monica goes from this point. It was a nice setup of that.
The second sequence we get, we see Monica out in the middle of nowhere, or Wanda out in the middle of nowhere in a small cabin. She's sitting on the front steps waiting for her kettle to whistle. Goes in, gets a cuppa, and but then we move past her and we see another part of her. I don't know if it's an astral projection of her that is studying the Darkhold, and learning all those things that she did not know. This is a very interesting one. This is, I'm assuming, is what is going to dovetail into Multiverse of Madness. What are our thoughts on this one, Eric?
I liked this one a lot better, although the hero running off to like a cabin in the woods somewhere felt very much like the end of the Incredible Hulk to me. So that part felt a little familiar. I've seen that in a lot of different movies of someone trying to escape from society, and that seems to always be the choice. But I did really like seeing her, like you're saying, either astral projecting or bilocating and being in two places at once, reading the Darkhold. That was very intriguing. And I believe we hear the kids' voices.
Yep. We hear at the end, we hear Billy and Tommy saying, "Mom, help, Mom, help." So I don't know if she is searching through the multiverse for a version of her kids, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But again, like the impact of the sacrifice, like I was saying, like this again is setting up potential lines, but lessening the emotional weight of the story that we got, I think. So I kind of had mixed feelings about the post-credit scene.
That's the story, but that's the House of M story, is her creating these these children, finding out that they're not real, and then eventually they become real.
Right.
Like they do. So that's the story that we've been telling all along. I mean, I think we can now clearly and definitively say that their major influence was House of M, and how that introduces new characters and new powers to Wanda specifically. So, I mean, I'm all about it, especially if everybody's all gung-ho about these Young Avengers.
Yeah, that's the thing, is I do want to see the Young Avengers, so I can't be completely mad at the idea of the kids coming back. It's just kind of, it was the 1-2 punch of, oh, Vision could be still alive, and the kids are still alive. That, like, I'm like, okay, so what really was, and Wanda's not being punished or anything, so like, what really was what were the consequences of this show? That was kind of what I was struggling with at the end. So yeah, mixed feelings for sure.
And I would say I'm somewhere in between those two things. And I should also say, I don't know that I necessarily want Wanda to be punished. I want Wanda to go through some restorative justice practices for sure. I want to see um, reparation, amends to be made to the people whose lives that she has affected. But I don't know that I necessarily want to see a punishment. I'm not a big fan of any sort of traditional penal system.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to see her realize, like, as of at this point, I am not deserving of the power and privilege that I have, and I need to figure out how to be a better person so that I am deserving of that. Because I can't help that I have this power and this privilege, but what I can do is be better at using it.
Yeah, and I think that's what they were going for, but it didn't come across as strongly in the episode. Like,
Right.
like I was saying, I don't necessarily want Wanda to be punished. Maybe that wasn't the right word. I felt like I didn't see enough remorse from her for what she had done.
I mean, you've now made that point like 2 or 3 times, and I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it. I don't think she needs to be remorseful. She didn't do anything wrong. I fully think that Wanda didn't do anything wrong because the things that she did were not intentional, and they had absolutely nothing to do with the people in that town. And like, that's where the world is going. Like the story is about grief, and the story is about that, and it has nothing to do with these people. And that's why Wanda just walks away and is dealing with things. Like, I don't think she's undeserving of her powers, because not knowing what they were or how to control them caused these people pain. Like, I don't think Wanda is like, sacrifice at any cost, but I don't think she's undeserving of her powers, because since she didn't know how to use them, people got hurt.
I'd say I pretty vehemently have to disagree with you on that particular point
as well.
But you are entitled to your opinion. I don't, in order for the story to have the emotional weight it needs to have, then all those people need to matter for me, right? In order for, like, they can't just be a function of the plot to her. They have to be actual people, and if they are actual people to her, if she is horrified by what she did to them, then there is some sort of amendment that needs to be made to those people that she has harmed. For me, that I think goes into a philosophical debate about the nature of story and character that we do not have time for today. But I think that's an interesting conversation that we should have in the future. Okay, so let's just rate what we thought of this episode. Sometime next week, I want to do a larger panel debriefing, things we loved, things we hated, and overall season thought, where we sit on the season after we sit with it for a while. But on the finale, how do we think that the show stuck the landing? Let's start with Eric.
Well, I think, as you can tell from our discussion, I was not as strong a proponent of this episode. I would say that, like, if people were disappointed because we didn't get Mr. Fantastic or Doctor Strange or the multiverse, like, that's blowing things out of proportion with fan theories. But I definitely, if people were like me, just kind of disappointed by the resolution of the story we were getting on the show, and sort of, as I've been saying, like, sort of removing some of the impact and consequences of it, I can agree with that sense of the disappointment. So for me, this was probably one of my least favorite episodes. It's still well done, so I guess maybe I'd give it like a 4.3. I don't know, something like that.
Okay. Yeah, I think we all kind of are in agreement that, like, the show stuck the landing ... barely. Right? It didn't trap the bed, but it didn't, like, knock it out of the park in the final episode. I think we all are, for different reasons, kind of somewhere in the middle.
There were some things that felt kind of unresolved, I think.
Yeah. Thomas, what about you, kind sir?
It's gonna live. I've started ranking them like amongst themselves. So it's gonna, because for me, it literally goes like 1, 2, 3 in terms of like least favorite. But they all live in that like 3.5 to 4.0 range or 5 range, because it's a very well put together show. But it definitely is going to rank just above the third episode. Because for all of its faults, we had some awesome fight sequences. We had the great Vision moment. But like you said, it is a tenuous landing and ending. So it's not going to beat the last 3 or the last 6. I'm sorry, the last 5 episodes. It's not going to rank any higher than any of those.
So yeah, like I said, I'm also kind of in the middle on it. The things that this show just consistently excel on, I think, is centering Wanda. I think that and her being the main character of the show, that's very important. The other thing that I think it very, very much does is centering on Vision. Like in terms of the character study of those two characters, this show is a rousing success. And as you can see from our conversation, there are a lot of other things that will vary wildly depending on what you are here for to watch, right? Are you here for story? Are you here for action? Are you here for a character study? Depending on what you are here for, I think there are a lot of things that miss the mark depending on what you're here for. And that's going to be, by the way, with almost any piece of fiction, mileage will vary. I am not Thomas. Thomas is not Eric, and all three of us can disagree and be fine at the end of the day. It's not what it's about. I don't need Thomas to agree with my opinion. I don't need Eric to agree with my opinion. And nor do they need me to agree with theirs. We have different opinions, and that's what makes art so beautiful. It is subjective. It can be whatever you need it to be for you. But these are our meditations on it. So that being said, my rating for this episode, I'm probably going to give it probably about a 4.2. I'm probably at about the same place as Eric on that. It's just somewhere in the middle for me in terms of this show. For me, I think the best episode of the show was probably one of the mid episodes. 3 was really strong too, though. I know there's a lot of like 3 and 4 really strong episodes for me. And then 5 and 6, like that whole middle section of this, I thought just like was just really, really the narrative height of this show. And even though the show didn't completely stick to landing, overall, I think it's a wonderful show, and I'm really excited to see where it goes next, and hopefully we get some more answers that will retroactively either make me enjoy this more or make me enjoy it less. Who knows? We shall see. But that's a wrap on WandaVision. We'll do some cleanup next week when we do I want to do a larger panel discussion, get a few other people in the mix and hear from some people that have watched the entire series and see what they think of the show. We'll also say who are our favorite characters, our least characters, favorite moment, least favorite moment, things like that. I want to thank the two of you for reviewing this entire series with me. I had a really, really good time doing this with you. The next thing that I will be reviewing is Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is starting in just a couple weeks. Really excited for that. I think 2 weeks that is starting. Ray, who reviewed Mandalorian with me, will definitely be back. We are going to get a third reviewer. Could be one of these two. You never know. We shall see. Because we are nothing if not passionate fans and love talking about this stuff after we see it. Eric, you can find Eric on the social medias at Facebook or contact him through Reflect Media. T-Squiz, you have some multiple social media handles that you go on.
Twitter and Instagram, T-Squiz42, or through Zooming the Movies, Thomas Squires. Frost Nixon is about to go live right now. I'm going to do that as soon as we hop off. And then starting next week, we start our Star Wars films. Both Maui and Eric are going to appear in at least one of our 9 film saga. So hope to see you all there.
Yes, and you can find me at Reflect Media, or you can find me at Maui Thoughts on Twitter or Mr. Maui Jones on Instagram. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Bye.